Greetings, my name's Dwayne, and these are what I call the Woodland Wizards. They've been a lot of fun to make. They're a little smaller gnome than I've been making, but I've been having a lot of fun putting them together and doing a lot of different creative styles with them. And there's a lot of different character that's in each of them. What I've used is actually wool to put them together, but I'm going to show you how with felt to put them together. You can still do that easily. Wool gives me a little bit more different color to them, design and everything, but felt will do this exact same thing. I just have more variety working with the wool. So I'm going to show you how to do it with felt since that's the easiest. If you have availability to other fabrics, I always encourage you to play and try different things with them too. So we're going to make our simple little pattern here. We're going to put that together. Show you how to make the coat, the arms, and the hat. I've been getting a lot of requests for the hat, and it's just a simple little tricks that I do with that. And that's what I want to do is take a little time to show you how to put this together, what I'm using, how I'm doing it. And so let's get started. I'm going to put these guys aside here. And what I start out with is a pattern that I've just made. And it comes with everything on there, how to put the hat together, the body, the beard, the base, everything. And if I'm using the felt here, it's going to need about 1.5 sheets of the felt, the 9x12 felt squares. Now, I brought up 3 here because if I'm using 1.5, I can actually make 2 at the same time out of the 3 pieces there. So I'm going to start out with our body. Now I'm using a 5x5 cone. The cones that you can get from Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Joann's, they're 6-inch cones. The ones I've gotten from the Dollar Tree are 6.9, so they're a little bit bigger than that. So roughly you're looking at about 1 inch different in height. So I have 2 patterns, one that is for the 5.5 and one that is for the 6 to 6.9. So you can make a little bit larger there. What I was doing too, when I couldn't get my cones in stock, I was cutting them down. But you're still got a little bit more of a width there. These I ordered on Amazon. I've tried to order them other places and they just either take too long coming from China or someplace else. So Amazon, I can put a link in there, has been the best place that I've been getting them. And they run just under $1 a cone. So not bad. The ones I've gotten from Hobby Lobby, Joann's, those usually run about $2 per cone. Of course, Dollar Tree's $1.25 currently. So you can use the larger ones. I prefer the smaller ones. A couple of reasons is because of the base, the size of the base, and because of how narrow the top comes together. And I'll show you a little bit and later how and why I chose that. But I'm using a 5.5 cone, again, that I ordered off of Amazon. The base is about 2 1/4 to 2.5 on the base there. Now the pattern, I cut out my pattern, put it on cardstock. I'm doing a fold over. Actually, on all the pieces there have a fold over. And I could just trace out my pattern, or since I did it on cardstock, I'm just going to cut it right out here to show you. Just cut along it. If I do trace around it, I just use a regular pen, trace around it. I know there are things that you can work out there that are erasable. I just cut within my line there. And I have my body. This is to wrap around the cone. This is also what you might call, it looks more like a coat for the gnome too. Now I always start with the cone in the center. If I start with it off to the side or something, I'm going to end up with this thing being angled weird on it, and I don't want that. So I always start with the cone in the center. And what I'm trying to do is leave about a 1/2 inch on the bottom there that comes down off the cone there. So I'll grab my glue gun. And I just run a couple little strips of glue down. And again, I want to make sure I don't go down past that 1/2 inch there because I don't want glue underneath there. So just gluing that down. It doesn't matter if I'm on a seam or not on the cone there. And then I'm just going to glue down. Now you can see there's going to be some overlap. That's fine. I want it to have some overlap there to make sure I'm covered. And I'm going to run that along the side. Again, making sure I have a good 1/2 inch down at the bottom here that I don't put glue on. And I'm going to put a little glue on the bottom of the cone there too, just on the edge there, just to make sure I'm gluing that down. Just fold that side over, and likewise the other side. Fold that over, hold it down, and that's going to give me my coat. Now the reason that I do that 1/2 inch there, grab one of these little guys, is because when it sits, I want the coat to come out. And what you can see is it doesn't really squish out if I just push it down like that, so I have to cut. And what I normally do is I cut about 1 inch. So I have about 1 inch there between each one. Now you could do it with just 2 or 3 cuts. That's fine too. You could do it with more cuts. Doesn't matter. Some of them too, so you want to put it down so that can fold out. You'll notice some of my gnomes have more of a wider in front, like this guy does. Others of them I will trim down just a little bit here. Just depends on how I want the character to look. So I can trim that down a little bit. I'm not going to do that on this one here. Now, I need a base. My base is actually, this is 2 1/4. Some of them I've gotten as 2 1/2. My base is 2 3/4. And a lot of times what I will do is, if I'm using my wool, I'll use a felt base just to save on the wool. And I use a gray base just to cover that. Now the base I cut out for this one, I used the felt. And the reason I make it bigger is that it'll help push that out. So my base underneath, I just get my glue gun and I run the glue right along the edge. And some in the middle. As you can see, these little guys do not have feet or shoes. I think they're cute that way, so I make them that way, and I'm not trying to put feet on them or anything, so I glue everything down on the base there in the bottom there. So I'm pressing that out. And that's my little trick there to help hold that. So when you put it down, those go flat. Again, it is a little bit bigger, but it's not even noticed if you do it with the gray underneath there. So a little trick on how to put my base together. So now I got it nicely covered. I got it so it's flat, sitting there. Now that I have my body, I go ahead and cut out my hat. My hat's doing the same thing. I'm using my pattern I've cut out, put it on the fold. See if I have one here already. Yep. That I've cut out. And now what I do is I get a thread. I like to make sure my threads match. Now this can be done with either stitching it up or with hot glue. I can run hot glue right along the seam there and have my hat done. Myself, typically what I'm going to do though is do the blanket stitch right up to it. But if you're someone that does just hot glue, if you're someone who uses a sewing machine, easy just to, just sew along there. And I'm going to put that through. For me, it's just been something easy for me to, just a type of thing that's comfort, just to do the blanket stitch. I like the way it looks. I like the way it just comes out at the end. Sometimes I'll use it on decorative, on the outside. But I just sew right up here. Now, if you're not as comfortable doing the blanket stitch, you can just do a straight stitch up and down. Pull it through and stitch all the way up to the top there. Once you get that stitched along there, you're going to turn it right side out. See if I can use my scissors here to help me poke just a little bit here, since I don't have my stick over here. There we go. So that's going to give me my top of the hat, and then now I need to make a brim for the hat. And the same thing, I'm just cutting out from my pattern. Cut out my piece. Now here, once I have this is something I learned along the way here too. I didn't start out making hats this way. I've watched some videos too, and I've seen how someone showed me the idea that with the hat, I make I go in the center, and I do a 1/2 inch cut in the center there. Then I fold it over the other way. I turn it so my cut's now in the middle there. And in the center of that, again, I do a 1/2 inch cut. I don't want to do more than that. I want to do just about a 1/2 inch cut. That's going to be going over the cone. This is where I'm going to now apply the top of the hat to this. Now again, we can do hot glue. I can hot glue the inside of that and put it right on there. I prefer again to get my old needle and thread, line it up. So what I'm looking at is I got about, again, another 1/2 inch going all the way around here. And once I do that, I start with where I have my seam to my hat. Now you can start from underneath, or you can start, sorry, you can start from top. It doesn't matter to me, because what I want is a rough look to it. My hat's going to be wrinkly anyways, so I'm going to do a little bit of a rough look to it. So if I have the stitch showing a little bit, that's fine. Also, I have a chance that I can cover it with a ribbon if I need to. So this is going to be on the outside, and that's another reason why I want the thread to match. So again, I'm just going up and down, and once you get started, you can work a little faster on it, poke it through. And now I'm just going to sew all the way around. What I want to make sure too is while I'm doing this is I cut those 1/2 inches. They're not coming out farther here. That way they're underneath this top part of the hat. Now, if you wrinkle it up a little bit, that's fine too. If while you're pulling it, if you pull it a little bit tighter, I don't mind that at all because it gives it more character. That's what these hats are about. That's what I get a lot of questions about is how do you make the hat? This is just a simple, basically witch or wizard hat. Not much to it except for adding the little bit of character to it, the wrinkles. So if you get some in there, if it's not quite lined up, that's fine. Gives it, again, more character to it. So once we get it sewed all the way around there, we got our hat together. Now the arms are basically the same too. The arms we just cut out from our pattern. And I've always wanted to do something with an arm that comes out with a full type of thing here. I'm not using anything else with it. I'm not using like a curler or anything that goes inside of it or anything. So here's my arm. Basically, again, I'm just going to sew. I start usually down at the end there, the narrow end, and just sew all the way up to the top here. Here now, I'll probably just do a simple straight stitch type of thing. It doesn't matter. If you're using a sewing machine, just sew along. If you're using glue gun, just glue your seam together. And put it right through. And again, I can just go through. I find it quicker to do. I get the same effect if I'm just running that along there. And of course, I do two of these. You got two arms. And we'll finish that off. Get you on there. And then once I have my arms sewed up, I'm going to turn those right side out. So here are my basic pieces. I got everything put together here. Only other thing I'm going to need is a beard. My beard is about 1.5 to 2 inches long in the width there. I just pull out scrap pieces right now. I just have some scrap that I cut. And again, I've done some beard cutting videos so you can see how to just cut the back of it. I try to make something that comes along and matches. If I'm using brown, I'm going to use more of a brown. If I want it to stand out, I'm going to have some sort of a white. But just have fun with the different beards. Different colors are fine and everything. But I'm using about 1.5 to 2 inches across here. And again, about a 1 to 1.5 inch down, depending on the size of the beard I want. I like the seam to show a little bit as far as to show that you have a coat. Now, if you want to cover and bring the beard down farther, go ahead. Just make this longer. Do it, instead of an inch, inch and a half, make it 2 inches, 2.5 inches. That just gives you a little bit longer beard for your gnome. Now up here where it's white, that's where I'm gonna glue it down, just so I can see the white of the cone. And we'll apply the glue across there. And bring our beard down. I told you these were simple. They're fun, cute little things. A lot of thing is the additions, the accessories that you add to them. Once you learn how to do the basic, it's all putting it together the same, just using different materials. My arms, I like to make sure I have the seam facing up. So I have the seam facing up towards me. I put a little dab of glue right inside to put that together, and a little across the top there. And what I'm going to do now is glue that right at the edge of my beard there, bringing it up just about a 1/4 inch above the beard. And now you can see my seam is facing right into the body. Laying it down there. I got the seam. I got this nice cone shape arm. I've always wanted to do something like that. And these came out real nice doing that. Put my beard together a little bit there. And then I do that with the second one too. I wouldn't go more than the 1.5 inches, basically 1.5 inches to 2 inches most across the top of the beard. You get the arms spread out too far if you go farther than that. So I try to stick with something that my arms are going to be coming off right to the sides there. And again, my seam of the arm is right in the center there, coming down. Hold that on for a moment so we're glued there. Got my beard. Next trick's just putting the hat on there. Now, that's why I cut the X in there so the hat goes on. Now with these guys, I put the seam of the hat in the back. Pull you down. And as you can see, I could just glue that on just like that. Have a perfect hat. A lot of my other gnomes, I like to hide the seam so I can just turn it to the side. And I put the seam on the side and I fold it over just like that. So that gives me a quick, different type of look hat rather than just the pointed witch type hat. I can just fold it over and glue this down right here. So that gives me a different hat if I want to do something just like that for a woodland gnome. With these guys though, I want to play with the hat a little bit, and I'll show you that in just a moment here. So I put my seam in the back there, bring my hat down. Another reason why I mentioned earlier, I like these cones that come to a point. It gives me more of a play area here. I don't put stuffing in the top of my hat. And the reason is because it allows me extra to wrinkle my hat up. The larger cones, the 6-inch cones, the 6.9 cones, they have a little bit more up top here rather than the point. So you don't get quite as much. I mean, you could still play with it a little bit. I've sometimes cut off just the top of it there. It is workable, yes. But you don't get as much of a squish that you can get to these guys. So that's why I use the thinner ones with the point to it. Like I said, you can use the other ones. They're fine. I just don't get enough play with them. So now I'm just going to glue the hat on and I turn them over. I roll up the back of the hat there. And I glue down just at the top of the arms there, the top there. And then I roll that back. So what I'm trying to do is make sure I get the glue up here where that seam is, where that is, and not on the brim. I want that to go across the top there. You're covering the back. And glue that down. We're going to glue the front in just a moment. What I like to do is give that just a little bit of time to dry. So while I do that, I do my hands. I use these are 3/4 inch wood balls. I get these from Hobby Lobby. I have ordered online before from a couple of companies, and I've just because I have a Hobby Lobby close by and I like the style of their balls, I use the 3/4 inch ones there. And I'll use the 3/4 inch for both the hands and for the nose. So on the arm here, I'm going to take the ball and let me grab some more glue here. And I'm going to put just a little line of glue, about a 1/4 inch line of glue along the top there. And across from the seam on the arm, I'm just going to take that line and put it just down in there. So I'm gluing the top to the sleeve. And as you can see, again, I'm not using any stuffing. I'm not using anything in my sleeve. If you want, sure, you can figure out a way to put a curler in there, a roller, however you want to do that. If you want to do something where you are closing it off and stuffing it, you can do that. But with these little guys, I find I want to, just do a little fun type of thing. Easy, keeping it easy there. And also I'm attaching accessories to them. So the arms are really much getting attached to my accessories. So I'm not worried about if I'm going to be bending them or doing stiff things with, other things with them. As I said, I want that angled look on my arm. So I did one hand there. Now you can also use, if you don't have the balls, and you want to use something else, like the pom-poms. I've tried that too. You get those natural looking pom-poms. You can pick those up anywhere too. You can use those if don't have access to the wood balls or wood beads. I don't like the wood beads as much because of the holes in them, but use what you have, use what you do, that's fine. And again, I'm just gluing that on the edge. I don't want to glue it all the way around the ball there, but just enough on the top there that's holding that ball in there. And then I'd have just about half that ball sticking out from the sleeve there. Okay, now I go back and glue the top of the hat down. And again, I said I take that break there a little bit just so I make sure the back is glued. And I'm going to roll this up. I want to see the top of my fur. I want to see the white of the cone up there. And again, I could put the beard down a little bit lower if I wanted, up high, however I want to do that to give it just some character to it. And I glue now, again, starting at the arm there and across the top, just above the beard. And once again, I'm going to pull that down a little bit and roll it over. Roll it onto the glue there. And the idea is that I'm gluing across the top here, not putting glue on my brim there. So here we have the basic body, basic hat, everything done together for our little gnome here. This is our gnome wizard. Now we add some character to him. In a moment, we can choose out your accessories or anything, but here I'm going to show you some of my tricks that I do. Again, I use a 3/4 inch wood ball for the nose. Now, here's where I start planning out how I want my gnome to look a little bit, because I can play a little bit. I can make him look a little bit taller if I push the nose up and roll that brim a little bit. You can see that brim just going up. If I want to glue it into there, I got the brim going up and he looks a little bit in length. I like the slouchy look. So what I do is I bring the nose down a ways and then glue that on. And that gives more of a, it looks a little smaller in height there, and we're going to do something with the hat here to change that too. But this gives it more of a slouchy look too, if I bring the nose down. So one of my tricks is I can either put the nose up high or bring it down low. I like it sort of in the middle, sort of down low. I can also glue just to the side there a little bit too, so I can give it a little bit more flop on one side or on both. So that gives my gnomes a little bit more character, even though if I'm doing something where I have, like I said, I'm doing two at the same time, I can make them look a little bit different just by the positioning of my nose, where I put it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue in sort of in the middle there and get some of that little floppiness of the hat there. That gives it a little bit more character there. Add some glue. And what I like to do too is just touch the top of the hat too when I'm putting the ball in there, because I want the glue to hold the hat a little bit too. I like to have a couple touch points with my glue. So I'm lining it up, and I'll push you down in there and hold the ball there for just a moment there. And I said, I'm not pushing too high because I don't want the brim to go up. Give it a little slouch look to it. And if I want to, again, I can add just a touch of glue to the top of the ball there and glue that down just a little bit. Again, I like the look there. So we have our basic gnome, and I have some of my gnomes that I've kept pretty much just like this, and done some accessories too. The rest of it now is just adding the character, adding to the fun to it, which is a lot of people asking, well, how do you do the hats? The hats, since I don't have any stuffing in there, I'm able to do some squishing. I'm able to do just some playing with it. So here's my trick. I'm holding it down like this. I see where the creases are. And you're going to have to do some in the front, some in the back, some on the sides there, because you don't want the hat just going off all one different direction most of the time. So I'll start out and I'll make a crease. And now I can even, if I want, I've had people that put wire in there and you can twist it. Here I'm just scrunching. Now once I know where I have my crease, I take a very little dab of glue. I don't want a lot. I want just a little piece down in there, right in the center of that crease, and just lightly, not a lot, because I don't want it oozing out. And I fold that over. And I'll hold it there. Now, if you're used to holding for like 30 seconds or something, hold it double. I don't want it to pop back open at all. Again, I don't want enough glue on there that's going to ooze out, but I want it to hold too. I don't want it to pop back up either. So if I'm going to count in my head from 1 to 30, I'm going to do it twice, just as long as I can, just to hold that for a few moments. So this does take a few minutes to do the entire hat, because I want to make sure that that glue is doing its work, that it's done there. And as you can see, right now the hat's leaning forward. So next crimp I do, I might do just in the back there or off to the side. You're going to have to be doing some, and each one comes out looking a little different. So now that I've held that, I got a crease in my hat there. Let's do another one. You're going to be folding it over. Again, I want to put just a little dab of glue in there. And that's it. Just make sure you're putting just that little bit. And once again, my hat starts folding in a different direction. Well, I just start putting more creases in. And you're going to see too, even though it's scrunched down, really scrunched down there and everything, once it's dry, the glue dries there, it's going to come up a little bit. That's why I'm working out. And you start at the bottom too. Start down at the bottom, start squishing it down. And if you see something like you're doing this along here, you got a hold of that, and you see a nice little crease over here that you want to play with, go ahead and add your touch of glue in there. I use my glue gun on low temp too, just so you know that I don't put anything on high temp. Number one, I don't want to burn my fingers. Number two, especially working with the foam cones, you'll melt the cones. Again, I see some nice creases here. I don't try to do too much at a time, but just for speed here, I want to come up with just hold. Sometimes you just have to be patient. Sometimes you just have to wait for them to develop. And they do. Get that stringy out of there. Everybody always asks, what glue gun do you work? What do you recommend? How do you, what's the best? I don't know. I've worked with a Sure Bonder all my career of gnome making. So that's what I've used. I can't say I get any less strings than anybody else. Now see, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to fold that top over. I like how that looks. Now again, it's going to stretch out a little bit on me there, but if I can do that and hold that down, I don't want to put too much in there, just a nice little line. Hold that down. Again, I expect it to pop up a little bit when it, because the hat's not going to stay quite down that far. That's how I make the hats. This is the one like I said, the biggest question I get is how do you make that hat? How does that come out? I'm using, again, just a simple, easy triangle hat with, like the witch hat, and just giving it some character. Now, again, you want to hold that so it's not popping up. Once I get that in place. Now, the other trick is I like with the wools, how much character it gives me around here with the, with the felt there. It's more of a solid, straight type of seam going across there. So I can add things in there if I want. If I want to add like some little flowers, little berries type of things on there, I can do that. If I want to add a ribbon, I could put a ribbon around there. But with these guys, what I wanted to come up with was for the Woodland Wizards was something that looked woodsy, looked a little bit older. So add some character to them. And that's what I think I've done there, is given that hat some character. So now it's just a matter of the embellishments. I've got everything put together. That is how I cheat. I put together my hat, give you little tricks there that I do to put those things together. And now what I'm going to do after that is, again, just put little embellishments in there. If you do have something where, you do see a little bit of glue or something, just hold it down a little bit more. Just put a little bit more, touch a little bit more glue on there, and just push it down just a little bit more. So if you want to do something a different angle, go ahead. The other thing I've done with the hats is I've just gone along and cut on the brim, and take about a 1/4 inch, not even a 1/4 inch all the time, and just go along and cut. Give it some, different character to it. This one here, actually, before I put it together, I painted. So there's so many different things you can do with them. There's so much character you can add to them. And like I said, each hat is going to come out different. Each one's going to have different folds to it, and you can add your accessories there. So that's my Woodland Wizards, basically. Now I'm just going to give him a nice little walking stick, give him some outdoorsy type thing. Again, I like to stick with the natural stuff, but it's great to see what you can do. I'm going to be trying some different things too, with different types of material with them. This was going with the felt to put that together. If you have access to the wools, that's great. And what we've done in the past, my wife and I, is we've gone out to the thrift stores, and we'll buy like wool sweaters so we can use them and put them together. That's one way of just making a whole bunch that off of one sweater. It gives it, again, some nice character. So here you have your gnome put together here, beginning to base, and now all we're going to do is accessorize it. So thank you. I hope you enjoy making your gnomes, and thank you.